I'm excited to introduce to you a new initiative hosted by the House of God Church called Vivid Vision. Vivid Vision is a series of webinars and learning sessions designed to empower and equip members of our great church. The Bible says in all of our getting, we should get an understanding, and without a vision, the people perish. So, with that, be sure to join us for Vivid Vision.
Good evening, everyone. We are so excited to be back with you at Vivid Vision. Listen, tonight we have a very important show. This show is so important for us on tonight. It's talking about getting your house in order, preparing for the loss of life. We know that this is a topic that a lot of people try to avoid. A lot of people, no, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to deal with it. But we do understand death does occur. And why not, when we know that is going to occur, why not be prepared? So tonight we have three good presenters to speak on three different topics that could help you and maybe help give you a guideline or a blueprint so you can be able to move forward in your planning for the loss of life. Listen, tonight we're so excited. My first guest we have tonight is Pastor Carl Flagg, who is the licensed funeral home director in charge and CEO of Flagg Serenity Memorial Chapel. Let's welcome him right now. Let's welcome him right now. Pastor
Good,
Flagg,
good,
how are you tonight?
good evening. I am better than blessed. I'm humbled and honored to be a part of Vivid Vision of the House of God, which is my foundation. I'm excited anytime something is going on real good in the house of God. Awesome.
All right. All right. It's so awesome. You're looking dapper tonight. I love the bow tie. I love
Well,
the bow tie.
you trained me well in advance. You set the stage. You set the stage.
Okay, so I want to get right into it. What does a funeral home director do?
A funeral director does a multiplicity of things. First of all, a community servant. Community servant. It is very important that we understand that in some of the most difficult times of life, when we need an individual who's trustworthy, who have earned our love and respect, a funeral director is a counselor. A funeral director is a consoler, and of course, a facilitator and one who not only directs a funeral but direct the family and provide options so that the family is able to make the best decisions in a very short amount of time to honor the life and the legacy of those they love so much.
Okay, okay, that is so awesome to know. I know a lot of times we see funeral home directors, and maybe we have a good, feeling about them. Maybe we don't. Sometimes we are in a different headspace when they come around because of the loss of life, and that is so awesome to hear. Exactly what a funeral home director does. So I want to dive right into this. Why is it important to pre-plan for your funeral?
Again, dealing with the transition of our loved ones are some of the most difficult times in life. We talk about from a spiritual perspective that it is appointed unto men once to die, and after death the judgment. But the truth of the whole matter is there are so many aspects, so many components involved in making funeral arrangements until it is a blessing to the arranger as well as their family, because you're able to get the thoughts. You're able to collect the ideas of that person's life. You're trying to really summarize a lifetime in a space of a couple of hours. And so it's important, first of all, to not be guessing while you are grieving. It's important to really know that individual. And many times people are making choices and they're putting their choices in rather than the choice of their loved one. So making pre-arrangements is very crucial. because you're not in the center of your grief. And when a person is in the center of their grief, we all are out of character because that's not a normal time.
Exactly, exactly. I love what you said about the grief process. I mean, you're in a different headspace at that time. So dealing with that grief process, there's no telling what type of thing you would say in that process. So, okay, so when we get ready to pre-plan for the loss of life, uh, what is it that I would need to bring with me to the funeral home that could make the transition or the planning easy?
Yes. Anytime there is pre-planning or pre-arrangements is being made, there's certain levels of pre-arrangement. Some families just want to put the vital statistic information on file with the funeral home. They want to notify a certain facility where the loved one may be, or if the loved one is engaged in a hospice program. They really want to be able to tell those individuals who are responsible for calling at the time of need. You want to be able to share with them what the preferred funeral director is. And then they also want the funeral director to have the necessary information as far as what their proposed plans are. And so oftentimes families come in with insurance policies, they come in with an obituary that is written up, details, even for the order of the celebration. Some folk will list their favorite scriptures and their favorite songs and the people who they prefer, to participate during their celebration. They want to talk about what facility, what venue they want to host the services in. Thoughts about the program. They select pictures, and so some families even go and make the casket selection, and then some families say, you know what, I'm going to leave that decision to my family. So it goes to all of different levels. And then some families actually make the funeral home the beneficiary of an insurance policy, or they set up a trust, or again, they just let you know who the next of kin is that will be making the arrangements, and the funeral director co-facilitate the details at the time of need.
Okay, so you kind of dove into just a little bit of it. So, okay, we know that we have a lot of viewers that are in various states. So, different people do different things. I know there is always a basic item that it across the line. This is what
Right.
your basic funeral would actually look like. So kind of dove into that just a little bit. What does a basic funeral service look like when I'm in the planning stage?
Okay, each service and each family is so uniquely different, and each of the families have what they would consider family tradition. It's a lot of contemporary factors that are involved, but for the most part, when a family come in and say, "Listen, I want the basics. I want a celebration of life. Our family has a family plot in a specific cemetery, that kind of thing." The funeral director should really be working with both the immediate family as well as the church administrators, because churches
Mhm.
also have certain protocols and certain preferences from the pastoral leader at each respective church. So we do our very best to cater. We aim to listen more and talk less so that we can really feel where the family is coming from and what's most meaningful. Because what we're doing, we are creating a celebration. We're creating a
Oh,
memory that is designed to be therapeutic to the family. So we still have the traditional funerals, wherein we have a wake or a visitation the day before the service. We have the service that day. Following the service, the family goes, to the cemetery, lay their loved one to rest, and either return to the church or back to their respective homes for a repast and for fellowship. And oftentimes, from a cultural perspective, it's a family reunion environment, because families, again, are so far spread throughout the nation and even internationally, until usually funds are not really flourishing, and they come together when unfortunately there's a need.
okay. Okay. So that leads me to the next point. um, when we talk about the basic service, what does that typical cost look like? Now we're getting into the nuts and bolts of
Right.
what that looks like. What would be that typical cost of
And
like your basic
yes.
funeral?
Let me say that the National Funeral Directors Association, they survey funeral homes throughout the nation, and it is a very much fluid number that's there because it's all really based upon the region that you're in. There's a tendency in the more rural areas for the cost to be less than it is in a more metro area there. And it will vary from funeral home to funeral home because the funeral home's overhead is the main factor that causes the funeral home to be able to set what you call their professional service fees. And so you can be directly across the street from another funeral home, and the numbers will vary. And that's why it's so important to get as much detail as you can from a preferred funeral director. The national average is now hovering right at about $10,000. In the more rural areas, I'm sure there are packages that families can trim down and get it more closer to 8,000. But you can get the Lamborghini package and it can be 25 or 30,000. That kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Okay. So when we're talking about the pre-planning stage, we're looking at the funeral. Now we know after the funeral there is basically, I believe there's two choices, and the two choices is a burial or cremation.
yes,
How
sir.
does that process work when you are talking with the family regarding pre-planning for a funeral, or if someone just passed away and you're engaging in conversation about it? How does that conversation actually come up, and then what is the difference between I would say maybe a price of a burial and a cremation?
Again, there are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of variables that are involved when a family come in. And again, speaking about death is such a sensitive topic until you really have to feel that person or discern rather what their faith line is. Because some folks say, you know what, the Apostle Paul was right, to be absent from the body, to be present with the Lord. And I know where my loved one is going and I have peace about it, and they just come in and make the arrangements. Some families will have what you call a simple cremation, and the funeral director pretty much starts from the removal of the loved one from the facility of transition, get all of the necessary permits that are required, get all of the vital statistic information that's required, and plan, get the doctor to certify the death certificate, the medical examiner, or the coroner in the jurisdiction will also review the death certificate and make sure that everything meets the proper protocol. And then the cremation takes place, and the family may just plan a memorial on their own without the need for the funeral director. That's a simple cremation. Other families are opting out for what we call a full service cremation. And a full service cremation does everything that a traditional funeral does except go to the cemetery. So you have the visitation, the body is properly dressed, properly embalmed and dressed and prepared for visitation. The funeral service takes place, and at the end, the family will either go directly to a repast. The funeral director will bring the loved one back to the funeral home, transition from a rental casket and go directly to the crematory at that point. That's what we call a full service cremation. So the cost of cremation, again, from the basic perspective, can be anywhere from $1,000 to $1,800 for that basic cremation, depending on what the family really specifically wants. And then the full service cremation can go anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000, somewhere in that range. And so you have these different levels and tiers of options there. And so we listen attentively to the family and really feel them out. What we don't want is families to have to make decisions based upon default. And when I say that, obviously, again, the toughest part of what I do is sitting around the conference table talking with a family who have no cash, no insurance, no one, and everybody's living from paycheck to paycheck there, and with my compassionate heart, wanting to do every single thing that we can possibly do for the family, but from the business perspective, they'll take the sign down and make this funeral home something else if they have to foreclose because we couldn't pay our bills because we did everything for free. So we really try to counsel the families to make sure that someone is being responsible and is putting monies aside. And here's what we say: it's better to know us and not need us than to need us and not know us and be caught off guard. Because when you're grieving, again, that is not a normal, natural time of life.
You leading me to this point, and this is really the most important question that I want to ask you, and this will be my last question to ask you in this segment. The various payment options. You kind of alluded to it. I know that, like you say, you can pay in cash, you can pay with insurance policy. How does that all work? And then I want you to be very real and very specific when it comes to the insurance the insurance
Absolutely.
part. How does that
Yes.
work?
I think, first of all, families must understand that a funeral home is not equivalent to a lending institution. And we have a lot of cash advances that must be made over the course of the arrangements. For an example, the family want a nice flower. That's the florist. That's their fee. You want to go to a specific cemetery. That fee has to be paid. You want a vault so that you have peace of mind for your loved one. That has to be paid for. The person who has to open and close the grave, that has to be taken care of. Sometimes the family wants the funeral home to take care of the clothing items, and you have to have hairdressers. So there are a lot of components that are involved. They decide how many limousines and things of that nature that they want. So the funeral home oftentimes depend upon a family having an insurance policy that is active. Please let me veer off, and I know you're going to have a more in-depth discussion about insurance, but accidental policies usually take effect immediately. A life policy, there is a contestability period there. And unless that policy has been 2 years old, then a lot of research and investigations have to go on so that the insurance company can verify and clarify that there were not pre-existing conditions. Otherwise, you get a refund of your premiums plus some interest. So the funeral home, obviously, cash, certified check, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, all of the major American Express, all of those are optional. Now, when families are using a credit card, there's sometimes usually a 3% or 4% charge because that's what the credit card company or merchant fees are involved. Insurance assignment is very important in the life of our families because they're just signing documents, and they sign what we call a claim form, and they also sign an assignment form. And the assignment form instructs the insurance company to pay the funeral expenses directly to the funeral home and the differential directly to the beneficiary. And so we do not take the entire policy and reimburse the family after the fact. We let the family decide what their budget is going to be, and we tell them those expenses that are non-declinable, that are necessary, and we do our level best to meet the family's need as it relates to the budget. But the insurance company, the policy, when the policy was taken out, all of those factors are very important because it can be a nightmare. You think you have X amount of benefit, and you really don't.
Okay, that is something good to know. That is something really good to know. And Pastor Flag, I want to say I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule on tonight. We do know that you are busy. We do appreciate you. And if there are any questions for Pastor Flag, please send them to info@hogconline.org. please send those questions there, and I will make sure that those questions get to Pastor Flag, and we get those answers right back to you. Pastor Flag, we definitely appreciate you tonight, and we look forward to seeing you again soon back outside.
You never know. I may make it up to one of the General Assemblies there. I'm a little bit overdue for doing that. One final subject I do want to maybe mention very, very briefly is that serving families and preserving memories. Preserving memories is really of utmost importance to us because that's where the therapy comes in. And embalming is an art and a science, and it consists of disinfecting, preserving, sanitizing the body, and last but not least, restoration. And I know that we have had families that smile through their tears when they could see their loved one looking natural and even healthy prior to them being sick and in declining health. So we spent a lot of time in our embalming lab to make sure that restoration is done in such a manner that the family can again smile through their tears and then have a memory that is locked and they respect us for that service.
We appreciate you so much for the last point and that tip. That is something awesome because you want to always view them as if you know how they looked previously. We
Absolutely.
definitely appreciate your time tonight. And again, we thank you for your time.
Thank you. God bless you, and give the bishop our regards. And we always will be a part of the Palaka House of God Church there, where our bishop G.L. Evans is the local pastor. And we thank God for the fellowship, friendship, kinship, and relationship. God's peace. Thank you.
God bless you too,
Thank
Pastor
you, son.
Flag.
Bless you.
All right. So that was a lot of information that was packed into that first segment. That was a lot of information. Again, like I said, if you do have any questions or any concerns regarding that first segment, please email info at hogconline.org. Now we're going to go to the segment as you see what we left off. We're going to go to now a very important topic that I think a lot of people try to avoid, and that's life insurance. We want to talk about life insurance. We want just to simple life insurance. We just want to do something simple to get you to understand the importance of having life insurance. And I have coming up right now is Yolanda Davis, who is a licensed broker and agent and CEO of Kingdom Wealth Builders LLC. Ms. Davis, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. It is good to see you. A lot of people seeing your face, they know who you are. They
Absolutely.
definitely know who you are. Listen, I want to get right into it. I want to get right into it. Why, Vex me, why do we need life insurance?
Um, my thought is we protect our cars, our homes, even our cell phones. Just if something happens, well, life insurance is as essential. And the reason I say that is because we must protect our families from the unexpected. And a lot of times we don't think about it, but when it comes to life insurance, there is a potential high cost. It was mentioned already by Pastor Flag in reference to the things that occur when a person passes away, their funeral expenses. But also, we have to look at loss of income. We have to look at unseized bills that is created. And of course, during this emotional, difficult time, we don't always think about life insurance in that manner. And so I'm very passionate about this because what happens is sometimes family have to give up their lifestyle that they're used to and accustomed to because of the fact that they're now in a financial strain and because of the immediate aftermath that has happened. And really, we don't look at it because of the breadwinner's income. And so life insurance offers that financial protection. So therefore, my question that I would ask someone to ask themselves is, what happens to my loved one if my income stops?
Ooh, Ooh, you see you in the preaching mode right now. I see you. So, okay, so we know with the loss of income, you want to protect your family. You want to
Yes.
protect your that should be your number one goal and your number one asset is to protect your family. So when I get to the point of understanding, okay, you convinced me I need life insurance. Now, the question is, what type of life insurance should I consider? Because we know we have term and then we have permanent. Which type of life insurance should I consider? And then also, once I consider the type, um, how much coverage will I need?
Absolutely. So when you consider the type of life insurance to buy, you have to, it depends on your personal goals. So let's talk about the two. We have term life insurance. When you think about term life insurance, you think about renting. That's the way that we talk about it in our industry. When you rent, you have to, your lease will end. So if you have term life insurance, it only lasts for a specific time. Some last 10, 20, 30 years. And most of the time, when it comes to term insurance, people get term insurance when they're young because you can get a large amount of coverage for a small amount of money, which is okay. But they're not understanding that once the 30 years, you got the, for example, you got the insurance at 30 years old. But now that you're 60 years old, that insurance expires. And when it expires, you have to now apply for insurance at 60. And at 60, it's going to cost you much, much more. So that's term insurance. The other option that we have is permanent. Some people call it whole life. Okay. So I'm going to give the definition between whole life, and then we also have permanent, what you call IUL, which is the index universal life. So it's very uh, interesting in life insurance because you're able to understand or to choose more than one. So permanent life provides life loan coverage for the insurance as long as the policy remains in force. In force means that you pay your monthly premium, and then so you are covered for your lifespan. So permanent life is sometimes more expensive to purchase, but permanent life, what they do is they consider your entire life, and so that's why your premium payments considers and take care of that for you. Now within the permanent life, you have whole life. Whole life is different from term. It has cash value. So after about 3 to 4 years, you actually begin to build cash in within your policy. And when you build the cash, what happens is, some of us heard the term borrow against your policy. Well, you can actually borrow money within that insurance policy, the whole life policy. Now, what's very important to remember is that you have to pay that particular one back, because if you don't, if you pass away, that death benefit will be paid out minus what you owe for that particular loan. Okay. Now, one that I endorse and favor is permanent life, which is it's called Index Universal Life. We call it IUL. Now, this is a type of permanent policy, and what it does build in the cash value, but it does it with compounding interest. And when I say that, your interest can go from 6 to 10%. And with the IULs that we have, the great thing about it is it protects against the downside of the markets. It also have what we call living benefits. It's called life insurance, and you have living benefits. So while you're living, if you have a critical illness, chronic illness, critical injury, or terminal illness, this life insurance policy will actually pay a specific benefit, and it will keep you from losing money, your medical bills, losing your income. And lastly, it also pays out tax-free death benefit. So those are the options that we have.
Whoa, you just gave us a real good lesson. You just gave us a real good lesson between three types of life insurance. Now, when we look at that, we understand what difference are. So now I guess the question is, how much coverage would I need? And I want you to that, but then I guess I can backtrack a little bit because you kind of mentioned it where you talked about what age should I get life insurance? I should start contemplating life insurance, or if I'm already at an age, well, should I start now, or should I start getting life insurance for my kids at what age? Just let's talk about the ages of when I should get life insurance.
Absolutely. The ages for life insurance actually 2 weeks old. So we encourage parents when your child becomes 2 weeks old, 14 days, we encourage you to get life insurance because you can actually build generational wealth with your children. And all the way to age 35, those are the ages where you get the best uh, amount for the premium that you have to pay. Because I want us to remember that the older we are, the more it's going to cost to get covered. Okay. That doesn't mean that if you're over 35, not to get life insurance. It just means that it depends on how much coverage you get. You may have to pay a little more. And that's because the older we are, the closer we are to our death date. And I know it's not depending just on age, but statistically, that's how it's viewed. And so we encourage parents to cover because once you cover your children in a permanent life policy, specifically, even term, that amount, as long as you keep your policy up, it doesn't change even as they age. So that's very, very important. Also, you were asking how much should we get? Well, what we do as insurance brokers as well as agents is we determine the coverage according to the family. We look at the lifestyle. Okay, we look at the lifestyle that you want to continue if the breadwinner passes away. We have to look at the fact that there's going to be an income taken away. So we have this method that we use. It's called DIME method. And DIME stands for we account for your debt, all the existing consumer debts that you have. We calculate that. And we also calculate a basic funeral cost there, which is the 10,000 that he mentioned. Also income, your annual income. And what we do is we see how many years of replacement is necessary that you want to provide for your loved ones. That's calculated. And then we calculate your mortgage. If you have a mortgage payment, we calculate the remaining mortgage balance. And we also add that to your life insurance protection purchase. And lastly, we look at the E, which is the educational cost. Schools can be very expensive. And to ensure our children are educated properly, we also include that as well. So we figure out how much the educational cost will be, and that's added to the amount of the death benefit. And so it's calculated, and the policyholder will actually give them the exact total amount of life insurance necessary to cover all their financial obligations to fulfill if they pass away.
Okay, so we got that information. So now I get it. I kind of get it. So if I'm 83, I shouldn't even be thinking about life insurance, huh?
Absolutely. At 83, you can. 85 and over is when it's cut off at 85. So if you're 83,
Okay.
you can consider life insurance. We do have, I didn't mention this one, but under the whole life insurance, there is a final expense policy. We don't always push final expense, but we do when a person is of that age, we do consider final expense, and that basically covers their burial and all of those type of things. It doesn't really leave a lot nor much income left to cover other things, but at least we want to make sure that they do have that taken care of.
Okay. All right. And that is something that is so good to know. So now you've convinced me. For those who wasn't convinced, yeah, I need life insurance. I need to now look at take this a little bit serious. So now the most important part, we know that there are thousands of insurance companies, hundreds, thousands, however many they are. How do I compare the various companies, and then how do I go with the best one that can offer the best insurance? Because sometimes with brokers and everything, we do know that it's about the money that they can put in their pocket. How do I compare um, getting the right company, going with the right broker, dealing with the right agent? How do I go about that?
Absolutely. And so that's very important. So when you're looking for a licensed life insurance broker or agent, it's very important to find out what their credentials are and find out from the beginning, because you can get a feel to see if it's about the money or it's really about you. And so I believe people first. We believe in people first, helping people. And so with that being said, we will look at how long have the actual company been in existence. You can go online to research that. You can also look at their percentage of payout on death benefits. Do they actually pay out if someone pass away? Also, you can also look at this and see what type you can compare, what benefits they offer, because sometimes you got to have compare apples to apples, because you can go to, sometimes we get things in the mail, so you can get insurance for $19.99 or different prices, but it doesn't include the living benefits. It doesn't include your cash value. It doesn't include things that you may want. So we must make sure that we do the research. And if you can find in your area a reliable broker, what we usually do is we actually have access to many insurance companies. That's what makes it a little different from insurance agent that's captive, is that you can actually look and research on the behalf of your client to see what is the best value. Now, best value doesn't mean the cheapest policy, but it means what are you getting that's going to cover you, and not only you, but it's going to go from generations to generations. And so that's what we try to do. So those are some things that you can do.
All right, so we have that information right there, and I definitely appreciate that. So now I want to hit another topic. So, what can cause me not to be approved for life insurance? What are some things that could cause me to not be approved for life insurance?
This is a good question. Sometimes we don't think about it, and that's what we encourage people to get insurance when you're young, as you're younger, if possible, and healthy, because health conditions can cause us to be denied for insurance, like high risk, such as diabetes, obesity, previous diagnosis of serious disease such as cancer, pre-existing conditions can be wait also risky professions like skydiving, or even being a pilot in some areas. You can also be denied for life insurance, and that's some of the questions that we ask. Are you planning to go overseas for a period of time? So those are the things, because remember, again, they want to make sure that they're going to be able to keep you for a client for a while, because he talked about the contestable period, which is about 2 years. So they want to make sure that you're going to be a client that they'll be able to cover for a while.
Okay. All right. So with that, once I'm in insurance, I've been in there a couple of years. Now let's just say you've convinced me that I want to come on with your company or however. Now I already have a previous life insurance policy. Can I transfer over the money that I've already paid into one policy to another one?
Yes, if you have depending on what policy you have. So what we do is we ask you to bring in your existing policy so we can see what the terms are, because that's very important, because they may say you cannot transfer. Okay, now if you have, example, a term policy, there is a term policy called return of premium. That means that at the end of your term, you can actually get the money that you paid into that policy back. So if you paid $30,000, you can get that $30,000 back at the end of that. That's not all term policies. That has to be in that policy, for example. So with that being said, it is very important to make sure we know the terms of your policy. You can have that done if it's agreeable in the policy. Some policies do and some don't.
Okay. All right. So how important, as I'm setting a policy, one of the most important things is having my list of beneficiaries. Now, is it just feasible just one beneficiary, or would it cause a conflict if I have three beneficiaries? what is the judgment on that, and what type of advice you give to that? Just in case. Now I know if I have a power of attorney or a will, I will have that reads. But let's just say I don't have a power of attorney or a will, and I have three beneficiaries on my life insurance policy. What type of advice do you give when you're dealing with uh, telling a client about when they ask the question about beneficiaries?
Absolutely. So the first question, because we cannot make just anyone a beneficiary, we have to know what the insurable interest is. So how would they be affected with the loss of your income? So that it could be a child, your child, your spouse. It can be someone that you have custody of. So those are the things. Now, what we share is many times when it comes to parents, many of them want to make sure all their children are equally involved in with the beneficiary part. So it's not a problem to have three beneficiaries. So they just understand that that particular coverage or that benefit will be split three ways. That's not an issue at all on our part. So now I don't know, once they receive it, they have any questions, but it's they're understood. And some people choose their child that they feel that's going to be responsible, that's going to take care of everyone. So it really depends on the individual situation. But I've seen some people have done up to three beneficiaries, and some just choose to do one, and they decide that, okay, and they give instructions to that particular one person.
Okay, all right. So my most important question to you, because you're in the profession, so you probably get different answers or you get different responses. Why do you think people avoid life insurance? Why do you think people avoid that?
It's the lack of understanding and knowledge. Also, it's a taboo conversation. Some people begin to think about losing their loved ones, feeling of being abandoned. And it's uncomfortable conversation to have. It's a tough conversation. I personally know that from experience, losing both of my biological parents. So it's a tough conversation. So people avoid it because they don't think that it's important. But I've learned through those experiences, it's the most important conversation to have, because we want to make sure that those that we leave behind is properly protected.
All right. And so I want to get to this point. This is a point that I was just reading something, but I want to know how true
Okay.
this is. Who pays more for life insurance, men or women?
Well, the truth is, women statistically live longer, right? So statistically, they live longer, so they generally pay less. So men pay more. This-
So I guess we need to stop taking a lot of risks then, huh?
Yes, men.
Need to
Yeah,
stop.
men are more risky. Even though women ride motorbikes, etc., men just take more risks. Even their professions, a lot of times maybe a little bit more riskier. Even though we the women also participates, but statistically, even they're the same age, the males will pay more.
Okay. So one of my final questions is this. You touched on it, but I kind of want you to really expound on it. You talked about generational wealth.
Mhm.
And when we look at, and we just keep it real, let's just keep
Okay.
it real. A lot of families within our communities have generational curses, which they don't know how to live, break that, whatever that curse looks like. So how does life insurance truly build generational wealth? I want you to kind of explain that, because I know you dove into the different type of policies. You talked about one policy you can borrow off of, then you talked about another policy that gains compound interest. How does that all work? How do you build wealth off of life insurance?
Absolutely. And the truth is, other communities outside of our community, this is their secret. This is the secret that they use. They actually use life insurance to build a generational wealth through the IUL, the Index Universal Life Policy. And the way that they do it is they structure it properly so that it can be a tax-free retirement for them. Also, what they do is you can actually have your own bank. It's called infinite banking. So they actually, not when you say be your own bank, but it's not that you're going to be a physical structure of a bank, but you actually can use the policy in reference to your savings plan. So you can actually take your insurance plan, you pay your monthly premium, but you can also use it and put money into it as much as you want and as much as allotted for per year. And when you do that, it begins to compound interest. And what happens is, as you build that generational wealth, you can actually go to that same policy and you can borrow. And that's what many of our different counterparts do. They don't go to the bank because the bank interest is less than 2%. Yes, we do need to have liquid assets. So we're going to have some money in the bank or some cash on hand. But when we talk about planning our future, our retirement, and for our children's children, leaving an inheritance for our children's children, we're talking about generational wealth. So this is a way to do it, and it's a legal way. Also, we must remember insurance policies are tax free. So they utilize it. So when you put it into an insurance policy, you don't have to pay taxes. You have tax free, tax deferred, and tax now. So when it comes to your insurance policy, it is tax free. So I encourage us to be our own bank. And you can look up infinite banking and get more information. It's a safe place for your money to be. You don't lose any with the stock market or the market. Only the gain. So as the market increases, your money increases. If the market falls, with the Index Universal Life, guess what? Nothing changes. You just get the increases. And that's the positive part of building your generational wealth. And guess what? When you do this, like the Rockefellers, you get your entire family to do the same. And you become multimillionaires, and you be able to take that generational wealth and you can go into that next part where you can do your trust and you can do the will and you can make sure that that money stays within your family.
Ah, look at you. You dropped the Rockefellers on us. A lot of people don't know about John D. Rockefeller. A lot of people don't know about him. But I, I do appreciate you for your time that you share with us. Listen, everyone that is doing this, we are bringing her back for just a segment on life insurance. She just dropped some nuggets on you, but we know that there's a lot more that she can dive into when it comes to the life insurance topic. Uh, Yolanda Davis, we definitely appreciate you for your time on this evening. And we thank you, and we will be bringing you back soon.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to share. This is a passion for me, and thank you so much. And what at the end of the day, I'm asking everyone to please make sure your families are properly protected, and we'll please our Lord and Savior with doing so. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We really appreciate you. Okay, so we're now moving to a very important segment. All the segments are important, but we're moving to one that some families they go through this type of situation, and then some families. I know that I've experienced something close to this in my lifetime, but uh, decision making. What is that last decision making when it's dealing with preparing for end of life? How do you deal with that type of decision making? And here again, this is a conversation that you need to have as a family. You need to have family night to sit and you talk with your immediate family. Or if you don't have any immediate family, get some of your family members together. But this is a conversation about decision making that you need to have when it's talking about end of life. And we have Miss Selena Fluker from Cleveland, Ohio. She is a registered nurse, and she deals with this topic. She's been dealing with this topic for a very long time, and I know we've had conversations, her and I, regarding this topic. And I want to introduce to you all Miss Selena Fluker. How are you?
I am fine. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay.
Everyone should know who she is. I can just give her the nickname. She is the selfie lady. She is the definite selfie lady. So listen, I'm so excited to have you on, and I want to get right into it because I think that a lot of times we don't know what type of situation we're gonna ever fall into in life when it comes to ourselves or our family members. And I want you to give a definition of a word that I know many of us have heard this word before, but I want you to kind of expound on what is the definition of a caretaker.
Okay. A caretaker, or another word for it is caregiver, is someone who sometimes it's a family member, but most times it's one person who takes care of somebody who's sick because of an illness, because of an injury, because of a disability, and they can no longer take care of themselves. They take care of their finances. Sometimes they take care of bathing, all assistance for activities of daily living, and that can be in the home setting. Sometimes caregivers, there's other family members that might come in and help. But what I've seen in my career is always that one main person, even if that patient has 6, 7, 8, 9 kids, it's usually that one who takes on that. It's a huge burden to be a primary caregiver. And then we have other caregivers, such as myself, that work in a healthcare profession. And some patients don't have a home and they're in a nursing home, and or while they're in the hospital, we're considered their caregivers. And so we just kind of take care of them, help them get better,
Okay,
hopefully.
okay. And so you talked about nursing home. I want to get into that. What is the difference between a nursing home and assisted living facility? What's the difference between those two?
Okay, so an assisted living facility, the way, because I've worked in those too, is normally for people who are still independent. They can still kind of like wash themselves up, take a bath, kind of cook for themselves, but sometimes they need like a little bit of help, a little oversight with that cooking, or they're too old and they don't want to stay home anymore. They can't stay home, they can't do the yard, so they can go into an assisted living facility. Now, one thing about assisted living facilities is it's not covered by Medicaid or Medicare mostly. So you have to pay out of pocket, and it can be quite expensive. Some things you have to pay for, like a la carte, like laundry. I've seen where they have to pay for their own, toilet paper, meals. If you need a nursing assistant to come in and help get you in a bath or a shower, you have to pay for that. Whereas in the nursing home, that's where people go who don't have money to be in assisted living, or they're a little bit more sicker and they require like total care. And that's where you have nurses and doctors, and you have 24-hour care. You have doctors that come into the nursing home. They have therapy sessions, PT, OT, all of that is included in the nursing home setting, and that's usually paid for by Medicare or Medicaid. Whereas if you need like therapy in a assisted living, a la carte, you have to pay for that. Doctors, you don't get doctors, you have to have your own doctor come in. Whereas in the nursing home, one doctor might have 25 patients, so they get to know that patient. They get to know their patients. It's easier to reach them in an emergency. Whereas if you're in assisted living, we got to track down the doctor because he's not a part of the assisted living and try to get orders. So that's the big difference is in the difference between the
Okay,
nursing care. And if you let
okay,
me just say this, if you have to put your loved one in a nursing home, because sometimes you don't have family or resources to bring your loved one home, but if you have to put them in a nursing home, research, 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 research. Especially now with the COVID, we've lost a lot of our healthcare workers. So, and even some of the great nursing homes, some of the quality of care has gone down because you don't have enough staff to really, really take care of these patients like they used to. So if you got to do it, pray about it, do pop-up visits. I like to call it the whiff test. If you walk in and you're smelling bodily fluids, that might not be the place to put your loved one.
yeah, okay. All right, that is some very good information to know. So that leads me to this point. Why is it very important? And I mean, this is a question I ask, but you just have to keep asking it. Why is it very important for us to plan for end of life? Why is that important?
Okay, so I'm going to read something really quickly that kind of brought this home, which is this is a passion of mine, the end of life discussion. I've experienced it in my own family when my grandmother was sick, and the determination was should we pull the plug? Half the family was like yes, other half was no. She didn't have anything in writing. And as a nurse, I see this a lot. That's one of the first questions I ask my new patients: do you have your advance directives? Sadly, so many don't, especially among the African American community. And that's my passion, is to bring more awareness. And when I say living will or healthcare, a lot of people go to, well, I don't have fur coats and I don't have money. So they don't really understand the difference between a durable power. So really quickly, this is a little story. Terry Schiavo, a lot of people might be familiar with this story, who lived in Florida, collapsed in early 1990 and was diagnosed as being a persistent vegetative state, which her parents and other family members disputed until she died March 18th, 2005. That's over almost 15 years she lay there at the age of 41. Finally, in 1998, her husband, Michael, petitioned a Florida court to remove her feeding tubes, saying his wife would not want to continue to live that way. Her parents objected, saying their daughter was conscious. In 2001, the court ruled in favor of Michael Shivels, and she was removed from all of those interventions to just keep her alive. So this case showed a side in which not making these decisions, these choices now, mean an individual's family. That's where you get the feuding and the fighting, and you have to go to court sometime because the hospital don't want to pull it. So it's important to have the conversation now. It's important to have your documents in order. So I'm just going to jump right into the documents that you need because this is my passion. Advanced care planning is the process of documenting your wishes now, while you're conscious, while you're cognitive, while you're able to make those decisions. So a living will is a form that is presented to you, and it's presented and it outlines your wishes in case a doctor comes to you and say to your family and say, hey, she only has 6 months to live, she was in a car accident, she's brain dead, what do you want us to do? It outlines. For me myself, if doctors go to my family, I don't want feeding tubes. I have that in my living will. I don't want to be intubated. I don't want a tube down my throat. So it just kind of gives an outline to the doctors as to what your wishes were. Healthcare power of attorney. This is when you designate somebody that you trust to help promote your wishes. They carry out your wishes to make sure that you don't end up in a vegetative state like this Terry Schiavo. And one thing about a healthcare power of attorney, a lot of people get it confused. When I go to surgery, my sister becomes my healthcare power of attorney. So while I'm under anesthesia, something happens or they need to come out, I trust my sister enough and to make that decision for me because I'm in an anesthesia and I can't make that decision. So that's why you need somebody. Trust somebody that will carry out your wishes, even though the flesh, and I might go spiritual and all that stuff. The flesh wants to keep that person here. I want my family, or you want your family to carry out what you want. Because I wouldn't want to wake up in a vegetative state and I can't move and I can't be Selena and I can't take selfies. For me, it's about quality of life. So you got to have that decisions now. Family picnics, while you're eating your barbecue, your chicken, you just slide it in. Every chance I get, I slide it in. I don't want this. I don't want that. So I know it's a long answer, but you asked.
No, no, no. Actually, you just covered you covered three questions that I had all in one, which is perfect. Which is perfect. So, in getting all of that information, once we decide, okay, I need to have this conversation, you got your key people that you're going to have this conversation with. You get the documentation that you're going to fill this information out. So now I ask you this: how do we continue to educate the family? Because we know in healthcare, things change rapidly. Things change rapidly, especially when it's coming to the loss of life. How do one stay in contact with the doctor or medical staff. Once I do my power of attorney and my health, my living will, all of that stuff, and something happens to one person who is the beneficiary, how do I speak with the doctors or the medical staff? What's like steps should I take just in case something changes within the will within our family that we need to alert someone in the medical field about?
Okay, so two really quickly. So the living will and healthcare power of attorney. First of all, you don't need a lawyer to have those filled out. You can go to a notary and have it notarized, or you can have two people that are not family members to sign as witnesses. Now, you can have up to 3 people listed on your living will and your healthcare power of attorney. So, say my one sister is not available or whatever, it defaults down to my next sister to make those decisions for me. And every time you change it, when you go to the doctor for anything, like especially surgery, they always asking, do you have advanced directives? So as they change, you give the hospital a copy. I keep a copy on my phone. I screenshot it in case I'm in an accident. They get in my phone. I'm very conscious about that. They can look under my emergency stuff and say, oh, she got advanced directives in case they can't get in touch with my family. So it's just a matter of, especially when you go to surgeries, or when you go into a hospital for anything, and that conversation comes up, that's when you talk to that doctor, to make sure, okay, I got my advanced directives. I need you to make sure you look at them. And my healthcare power of attorney is my sister. And so I trust my sisters. It was my brother, but as when my brother died, I took him off and then I added somebody else, and I'm always having that conversation. If I come home from work, because I hate to be stereotypical, but it's mostly Black people. When it comes down to that, making that choices, it is nothing in writing, and you have 6 people over here arguing about what mama wants, and 8 people over here cussing out, and it just be sometimes it's quite embarrassing. And I'm not being stereotypical, but this is normally what I see, especially in that younger generation who are not preparing. So this Vivid Vision has given some great information. I could go on and on about. I'm just going to stay in my little subject. But yeah, you got to be an advocate for yourself. You got to advocate. You got to talk about it. And it's not an easy subject to talk about. But you could get hit by a car tomorrow. You can get in a car accident. You can start at 18 years old making advanced directives, planning for your end.
Yeah. Okay. You shared quite a bit of information, and again, this is one of those topics for our viewers that are out there. This is one of those topics to where we're going to bring Miss Fluker back. We're going to have a segment on this because this is something that we need to dive into a little bit deeper. So I do have one last question to ask you, and I think this is very important because when we're talking about empathy, when it comes to someone who is at that stage of the end of life, so what are some ways caretakers or caregivers can provide emotional support to the loved one or to the patient that they're taking care of?
Oh, so now you're pulling on my hospice stuff. So I I have another little story that will sum this up beautifully. So my bishop pastor, C. Esther Bryant, we all know her husband. A lot of people know her husband, Deacon Carl Bryant, died. But before he died, he was in hospice at home. He was on hospice care at home. And a lot of people came to see him. But during his last days, his daughter reached out to me and she was asking me, what signs should I be looking for? And so, I was telling her what signs when it's going to be close to him taking his last breath. So she called me one day. I had just got home from work, and she said, "Nina, my dad, something's changed." So I rushed over there, and I could see he was on the last stages of his life. So for me, I was that support. I opened up the windows. I got music playing. I tried to change the atmosphere. I explained what was going on. I washed him up. I gave him a little medicine to help because he was breathing really hard. And I just talked him through it. I said, let's talk about some fun stuff. Let's do memories of him. Tell him you love him now. It's okay for him to go. We started calling family members in. We prayed, and because when I got there, everybody was like, ah. And it's for me, I just calmed the atmosphere down. and he was able to have, and I do believe my presence in helping to bring that fear down and walking them through, because we all have to go this way. Death is not, I mean, it's scary, but I've seen, and it's kind of cliche, I've seen some beautiful deaths. Dying in peace. When he died, his face was calm. It was not long. His breathing was labored, and that brought the fear down, and they thanked me because I was there to be that support. So as a caregiver, and it's okay to cry. I've cried. I've had patients die. I've cried harder than the family. You show them that empathy. You show them, you hug them. If they don't want to hug, you just listen. You just be there for them. You treat that body, because right now it's a body, with dignity. As you clean it, you wash it, you wash them up, you dress them, and you just love on them. Just love on. You got to have that empathy. Even the disgusting stuff, as people say, when they let out bodily fluid, you just make it, I can't say fun, but just a natural part of life. You just got to love on them and pray with them and just be there for them. Or call me, and I sing a song. I can sing Amazing Grace in different church versions, so I do a lot of that too, a lot of singing and praying at the end of life.
We definitely appreciate you for sharing with us again. We are going to bring you back because this is a topic that I believe that we need to keep pushing. Need to keep pushing this topic. And again, Ms. Fluker, we definitely thank you for your time.
One more thing,
You
Shane,
sharing with us. Yes.
One more thing, really quickly. And I know this is not a biblical thing, but the Bible does not talk about living wills. But I did have a scripture, Isaiah 38:1. In those days, Hezekiah was sick unto death. Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, came unto him and said, "Trust, thus said the Lord, set thine house in order, for thou shalt die and not live." So that is the scripture that I believe by. Get your house in order. Get your house in order, because we too shall pass this way. And it takes that burden. One thing about having your living will and all that, it takes the burden off that family. So when they make that decision, they don't have to feel guilty. They'll know this is what she wanted. And it just takes that burden and lets them go ahead and celebrate my life.
All right. We definitely appreciate you, Ms. Fluker, for you sharing with us on tonight. And again, like I say, we are going to bring, for our viewers, we are going to bring her back for a more in-depth conversation when it comes to the end of life.
Yes.
We thank you. All right. This is the end of our show. We definitely hope that you enjoyed this show. We know that there was a lot of information shared, and I do want to share this with you. This show meant a lot to me because of what I've experienced with my mom. Let me tell you, for years, I fought against even just listening to what she wanted at the end. And I just gave in. She said, "Shane, come on, write this down." I wrote everything down. And March 27th, my life of 2021, my life changed forever when she took her last breath. And listen, when I got on the plane and I flew down to Florida to take care of stuff, listen, everything was already laid out. Let me tell you, Drusilla Chucky Lee had it already laid out. That week was a blur to me, but because she already had her house in order, it made everything fall in line. I didn't have to worry about anything. So this topic is something that we need to discuss with our families. This topic is something we need to discuss in our churches. We need our people to understand that end of life will come. End of life will come. The question is, will you have your house in order? Again, thank you for your time this evening. And on September 14th, on that Thursday evening, 6:30 p.m., we will have our next Vivid Vision, and we'll be talking about real estate. We have two great people, Mark and Josephine Evans, who are going to be sharing with us on that evening. Listen, again, I say thank you, thank you, thank you. You all have a wonderful evening.